welcome Dr. Sri Anwar for joining us on Conversation With. Now, first thing first, you've been the country's Prime Minister in waiting for the longest time. Since I know you, day one as Deputy Prime Minister, you've been in and out of jail, and now the wait is almost over. How do you feel?
Well, I'm delighted, of course, that after all these tribulations, we are at least set to chart a new Malaysia. And as I said, a new dawn for Malaysia. To me, that's paramount. I am a small player in this exercise.
A lot of people are still wondering how this transition is going to take place. Could you take us through how this transition is going to take place? Now there's going to be a by-election to pave the way for your return to Parliament. How exactly is going to happen? Do you know?
I don't see this as too problematic. There was a consensus reached since January when I was still in jail, and then I was supposed to enter the Parliament as soon as possible, but I thought I should get things to order, get back to the family, visit the states to thank them, and then friends overseas. And precisely that's what I did. After 4 months, I thought this is the right time to enter Parliament. Then focus on parliamentary reform and getting to know the new MPs and interact with the ministers and the leadership whilst ensuring that the rapport with Prime Minister Mahathir continues. And I think I'm not particularly concerned about a timeline. I have no issue with Mahathir, and my rapport with him is excellent. I have good access. I express my views. I also acknowledge that styles are different, and he is known. I mean, I don't believe that we should insist that his style must change. What is important is Mahathir has done remarkably well in this new reform government. He has shown to be very consistent, and I think it is my duty, my task, to support him and to ensure that he is effective and strong with the total support of all the coalition partners.
When you do become Malaysia's 8th Prime Minister, you'll be 73 years old, and Dr. Mahathir will be 95. Do you think there's a role that he can still continue to play in your government?
I don't believe, after discussing, extensive discussions with Mahathir, he's interested to have a position in government. But I think we should utilize his expertise, his experience to assist and formulate some of our policies, and even assist to probably help in explaining or establishing contacts locally, domestically, and internationally.
So there is no plan to have a senior minister or a minister mentor position created?
But Mahathir has always said to me, if you retire, retire. But we are open. I mean, I think as long as the relations is now not only cordial, but working relations based on trust, I don't foresee that as problematic at all.
But can he ever retire, do you think?
Well, he does not retire. I mean, in terms of his public service, his commitment for the country, his love for the country, and I think I share his views. We don't actually retire in that sense. I mean, if you mean you are a firm believer in the attempt to assist or undertake reform measures for your country, is a love for the nation, then you should not retire in that sense. You retire from office. You don't retire from the struggle or to assist those in power or in authority in the areas that you deem fit. And I think that is precisely what he intends to do, and I think I certainly would share that sentiment.
You'll be given a free hand to run the government as you want.
Yes, like what I do now. Although I am leading a party with significant numbers of MPs in Parliament, but my position is very clear. You have the Prime Minister, you should give the support, you give him the latitude, and we give him the undertaking that the entire party and the missionary are with him in effecting reforms.
So the timing as to when you're taking over depends on the Prime Minister. Do you have the exact date? Do you have the exact transition plan right now, or it decides to be decided?
It's too early. I mean, Mahathir has been in office only for 4 months. And I think let him then continue with his task, which is very challenging right now. It's a major task of dismantling these remnants of the old regime, the endemic corruption, and it's not the time to speak essentially about when I assume office, because the priority now is to make sure that he is being supported and his role as Prime Minister is effective.
But what you know for sure is when you do become the Prime Minister, Dr. Wan Aziza will not be your Deputy Prime Minister. Who you would like to see as your Deputy Prime Minister?
It's for the MPs to recommend, for the parties to decide. I should not preempt that. There is, of course, a broad understanding, but only in terms of my position. There's no insistence or even lobbies for the next person to be Deputy Prime Minister.
The existing cabinet members will remain?
No, I think the option is always given to the new leader to decide. I mean, that is, I have not thought about it. I mean, it depends, because they have 1.5 years to prove themselves. They are effective. They should continue. If they are mediocre or lack in the expertise or performance is rendered poor, naturally we have to revise. I mean, that is unaccepted.
On Malaysia Day, let's shift gear. We would like to hear your thoughts on Malaysia Day. Is the country now more united or more polarized than before? As we speak now, your party, Parti Keadilan Rakyat, is having the internal party elections. All eyes are on the deputy presidency race that's bitterly fought between Azmin and Rafizi. Are you concerned that this clash is going to affect your party and also have an impact on Pakatan Harapan coalition as a whole?
In any democratic exercise, when there is a battle for key positions, it will be seen to be somewhat cracking the base. I don't see this happening. I've seen states organizing programs for both of them. I don't see this massive boycott from one each other. There have been cases of excesses, money, etc., and I made very clear we will not tolerate them. So when the MACC arrested one or two, they have our full backing. If it's established, we will sack them from the party, and that to me is important.
On Malaysia Day, let's shift gear. We would like to hear your thoughts on Malaysia Day. Is the country now more united or more polarized than before?
Well, 4 months is very short in the political process, but I have seen this new emerging mood, particularly among the young of all races, giving this hope whilst giving undivided support and loyalty to the government in power. I think this is a certainly welcome sign. I've been attending some of the youth programs. You see this mix, multiracial, multireligious groups. Of course, among the elderly diehards who are still harping on racial issues or religious issues and continue to cast aspersions and suspect. I think that is to be expected, but to a large extent it would depend on our capacity or ability to perform and affect this change. And I think we are, at least for now, on the right track. Cleansing the apparatus deemed corrupt in the government, strengthening institutions of governance, judiciary, the enforcement agencies, and I think this has to continue. But now the focus also has to be on the economy. And I think the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister has been looking at it, and will have to view the budget, and they tend to be more realistic people, and not to succumb to the populist demands, because you must look at the stark realities, the figures, the data, our capacity, and enforce them. I think to me this is a welcome sign. The contrary, you can see a departure from the old obsolete ruthless policies. But in terms of united force, we can sense in any gathering, interacting with people all walks of life, base creed, and you can sense this new hope, which is not race-based or religious bigotry.
You said that the Bumiputra agenda, the Bumiputra policy, is now obsolete. It's created a whole bunch of rent seekers. Perhaps the affirmative action policy should be looking at based on people's need rather than race. Can you tell us some of the concrete measures that you're thinking of putting in place to correct the weaknesses?
I've said the affirmative action policies must continue, because the vast majority of the poor and the marginalized are still the Malays and Bumiputras. This cannot be ignored. If it is considered, if it is dismissed, it will be at our peril, because we don't want the Malays also to feel that they are being ignored in this administration. But the approach is different. We have to ensure that Malays, Chinese, Indians, Ibans, Kadazas feel that if they perform based on merit, they will be considered. But achieving economic growth would also demand that we equally concern ourselves with the welfare of the poor, and concern ourselves with this gross inequality taking place. So the policy has got to be shifted, of course, because the race-based policies cannot be defended philosophically, Islamically. A policy that concerns ourselves with the position of the poor and the marginalized, of course, can be defended. But to me, the fundamental issue is how to create an atmosphere to ensure that Malaysia becomes again an attractive destination for foreign direct investments. And that would demand a shift of policy. And this policy to us is also timely, because we have matured as a democracy. We can see the wave of support of people from various races and religious creed, and this is clearly a signal for the leadership to be mindful that we will have to reciprocate that sentiment by an objective, just policy.
But will you go as far as scrapping current Bumiputra policy favouring the Malays, the majority Malays in jobs, education, businesses, and so on?
We will have to favour those who have been marginalised or the poor, lacking opportunities. We talk about meritocracy, but you cannot, for example, get students from the best schools, Kuala Lumpur, and put them at par with a rural school in Kapit in Sarawak. So there must be this consideration too. We will acknowledge the need to support meritocracy, but we will also have to understand, be mindful of the fact that those poor, downtrodden cannot be marginalized. So if it means that the vast majority of Malays, Bumputras are not given the opportunity, we'll have to consider this specific action, which is a constitutional guarantee. What happened in the new economic policy is, of course, transgressing that spirit, extending it a bit too far. Whilst in education, I would admit there was some measure of success, social mobility is apparent, but in terms of business contracts, certainly it has given favor to those who were not deserving even. But what happened if the entire business climate is controlled by one race? Naturally, it will also generate instability. So we must find mechanisms that we find that participation from various races, various provinces, given due attention. So there is an amount of government persuasion involved to ensure this. Because it's not as simplistic to say scrap within an NEP or have a need-based policy, but when it comes to the affecting change or implementing policies, we have to be mindful of the sensitivities.
On the ground, yeah.
On the ground.
Do you foresee UMNO ever joining the coalition? You talk about wooing foreign investments. It's a key priority right now for the current government. How do you think Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Mohamad's handling in cancelling some of the mega infrastructure projects, especially with China, and how it handles policy with Singapore in terms of the HSR, the high-speed rail? Do you think it will have an impact, especially in Malaysia's efforts to woo foreign investment?
Well, the perception is different. If you understand the context of Mahathir's policies, vis-à-vis China, our state financial condition does not warrant us to embark on a massive mega project. In fact, that's one. Number two, it is not a matter of Chinese investments. It's what we suspect as dubious deals between the former administration and specific companies. What needs to happen is, for example, scrap, then relook at it. If it is deemed to be important in terms of infrastructure, this can be considered later. But Mahathir made the right decision, giving the right signal. We can't inherit this huge 55 billion ringgit project when the finances of the economy cannot handle. Does it mean that we are now rather not supportive or negative against Chinese investors? No. To the contrary, he visited to China, and I met in Hong Kong a number of them and gave the same assurance. But the rules have changed. It has to be more transparent. It cannot be deemed to be a burden to the state. Similarly with Singapore, PM has met the leaders. I have met the Prime Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Chok Tong. I mean, it's been very useful series of negotiations. I think we will have to defer for a while. Then we have to relook at it. Deferring the project also is at a cost. We have to pay lots of money. And that's, of course, disconcerting, looking at the finances of the country. But I think Mahathir's direction seems to be clearly, whether it's the old administration or now, you have to be more transparent. You must not be seen to be condoning any form of excesses. So I think with Singapore, similarly, I've given categorical assurance that nothing will stop us in attempting to forge a sound, effective, better relationship with Singapore. There are, of course, some serious contentious issues that must be dealt with, but notwithstanding that, the trade, investments, bilateral relations must continue.
We need the HSR?
HSR for now is being restudied, relooked at a cost to us. Whether the alignment, whether we need to go, we talk about Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, or we should extend it to Gemas and Melaka, etc. All these things need to be considered, whether it is economically viable, whether the returns are, all these issues need to be restarted. It's a new administration. We can't embark on this billions of ringgit project without even having adequate understanding. But we are quite satisfied because the Singapore authorities seems to be quite supportive of the need to continue this sort of engagement.
Would you like to clarify your position that you said that currently at the equation, you don't see UMNO being part of the equation of Pakatan Harapan, but PKR is willing to work with any parties. But do you foresee UMNO ever joining the coalition?
There's no contradiction between my position and what Mahathir said. We, as it stands, we don't need UMNO in the Pakatan as a party. I mean, there are individuals who have joined Bersatu, or individuals have joined Keadilan. That's, of course, something else. But even then, they have to adhere to our principles and support our agenda. Now, I don't see why is it that necessity to embrace UMNO and this new coalition. I mean, they should be effective voice for the opposition. And they seem to be working, attempting to merge with PAS. I don't know, or coalition with PAS.
Because some of the UMNO leaders said they will voice support for you in Port Dickson, and they said they will campaign for you and give you the support in the by-election.
I say terima kasih. I mean, I welcome anyone who wants to support. And some of them are known to me as individuals. We continue to be friends. But I'm talking about a party, coalition between UMNO and Pakatan. This is, of course, for Pakatan to decide. But at least my view, consistent with Mahathir's view, that we should continue with our efforts, and there's no necessity, urgency to embrace other parties.
But will you welcome them if they quit the party and join as member?
It would depend who, how controversial, what dubious deals they were involved in the past. I, as a person, personally, I'm very forgiving. What they blast me or dishonorably, that can be forgotten and forgiven. But when it comes to the deals, that of course they have to explain to the authorities. But for me, as it stands, even in Port Dickson, I welcome anyone who wishes to support. Why should I be so overconfident or arrogant to say, no, I don't need you or what? But I'm not saying that, therefore, our platform, because the party platform, a Pakatan platform, must be based on certain agenda, certain principles and policies. If they want to do and take initiative of their own, I said welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on Conversation With. Yeah, appreciate very much your time.